You walk into an empty room. The lights are off. Nobody is home. And still, something in your chest tightens. Your eyes move to the corners first. Not the center, the corners. Your skin prickles. Your breathing slows without you asking it to. You tell yourself there is nothing there. But the real answer is far stranger than nothing. Your brain is not scanning for nothing. It is scanning for someone. For most of your life, you have called this feeling irrational, a trick of the dark, a leftover fear from childhood. But this feeling is not a malfunction. It is a machine working exactly as it was built to work, forged over millions of years in a world where empty rooms did not exist, only empty clearings, and empty clearings were never actually empty. Rewind 200,000 years. You are standing at the edge of a clearing in the grass. The light is failing. You cannot see into the tree line. Is there a predator watching you from inside that darkness? You do not know. And here is the problem. You never get to know for certain. You only get to guess, and then live or die by the guess. This is where your unease was born. The psychologist Justin Barrett named the system responsible for this feeling the hyperactive agency detection device. His research suggested your mind carries a built-in bias toward assuming something is there, rather than assuming nothing is. Not because something is usually there, because the two mistakes you could make were never equal. Think about the math for a moment. If you assume a predator is hiding in the shadows and you are wrong, you lose nothing but a few seconds of adrenaline. Your heart races. Nothing happens. You move on. But if you assume nothing is there and you are wrong, you do not get a second guess. You do not get to learn from the mistake. You are simply gone. Evolution does not reward accuracy. It rewards survival. And a mind that survives by overreacting will always outcompete a mind that dies by staying calm. This idea has a name. Researchers Marty Haselton and David Buss called it error management theory. Their work proposed that when the cost of two errors is wildly unequal, natural selection will favor whichever error is cheaper, even if that means being wrong far more often. Your unease in an empty room is not a bug in the code. It is the code working perfectly, tuned by thousands of generations of ancestors who flinched first and asked questions later. So why does the feeling remain even now, when no predator has stalked a human being in an office building or a quiet apartment in generations? Because your nervous system does not know the difference between a savanna and a hallway. It only knows patterns: dim light, reduced visibility, silence where there should be sound, corners it cannot fully see into. These are not modern threats. These are ancient signatures, the exact conditions your ancestors' bodies were trained to treat as dangerous, and your body still runs that same old subroutine every single time the lights go low. The evolutionary psychiatrist Randolph Nesse compared this kind of anxiety to a smoke detector mounted in your chest. A good smoke detector does not wait for certainty. It goes off at the faint whiff of smoke, long before any fire is confirmed, because a few false alarms are a small price to pay for never missing a real one. Your unease in an empty room is that same alarm. It is not telling you a threat is definitely there. It is telling you that, statistically, across 100,000 years, rooms like this one were sometimes dangerous enough that caution kept your bloodline alive. Notice what your body actually does when this feeling hits. Your pupils widen to gather more light. Your breathing shifts to something quieter, so you make less noise and hear more of what is around you. Your muscles tense, ready to run or to freeze, whichever the moment calls for. None of this is decided by you. It is decided for you, faster than conscious thought, by a system built long before you were born to keep something like you alive long enough to have children of your own. Here is the part that reframes everything. This feeling is not about the room at all. It was never about the room. It is about every room your ancestors ever stood in and did not die in, because they listened to a whisper of dread and turned around, or lit a fire, or stayed close to the group instead of wandering off alone into the silence. You are not the first person to feel unsettled by an empty space. You are the latest in an unbroken chain of people who felt that same unease and survived it, generation after generation, until it became written into the wiring you carry today. The ones who ignored the feeling entirely, who walked into the dark clearing without a second thought, are simply not your ancestors. Their story ends there. Yours does not. Is it strange to think a feeling this fleeting, this easy to dismiss, could be one of the oldest inheritances you carry? Older than language, older than fire, older, in some sense, than the species you belong to now. Consider how this shows up in the smallest modern moments. You hesitate before turning off the last light in the house. You glance behind you on an empty staircase. You feel a flicker of relief when you close the door and hear the click of the lock. None of these moments involve real danger. Almost none of them ever will. But your body has no interest in almost. It only knows never miss the one time it matters. This is also why horror films use empty rooms and dark hallways more than any monster they could design. The scariest thing on screen is often nothing at all, just a corridor stretching into shadow, because your mind fills that emptiness in for you. It was built to. Filmmakers did not invent this fear. They simply learned how to aim an ancient tool that was already sitting loaded inside every person watching. Even the layout of the homes you live in echoes this history. People tend to feel safest with their back to a wall and a clear view of the entrance to a room, a preference researchers in environmental psychology have observed again and again across cultures. This is sometimes called prospect and refuge. You want to see out, and you want your own back protected. It is the exact posture your ancestors sought at the mouth of a cave, translated now into where you choose to sit in a coffee shop or a restaurant without ever noticing you are choosing it at all. So the next time you walk into an empty room and feel that quiet prickle down your spine, you do not have to be embarrassed by it, and you do not have to explain it away as nothing. It is not nothing. It is a signal passed down through an unimaginable number of hands, refined by every ancestor who lived long enough to pass the feeling forward, tested against real stakes in a world that no longer exists, but that shaped the one you live in now. You are standing in a quiet room, and your brain still checks the corners first, because somewhere in the deep architecture of your mind, the clearing has never fully closed, and the tree line is still there, waiting just past the edge of what you can see.